Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Zero to Empire podcast. On this episode, I have Eric Ayers. He's the creator of SimRx. He has quite the story, so make sure to stay tuned, watch, and listen in. And it's going to be a great conversation with Eric. So, Eric, thanks for being on the podcast. And actually, can we actually rewind and actually go back to what originally pulled you into the nursing profession and how that led to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me here, Sam. This is awesome. I love this. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So, yeah, let's rewind. Been a nurse for 21 years. Prior to that, I had the thought of I want to help people, and that's what most people in the healthcare industry come to this realization. It's very vague, and but it's true. It's an innate internal aspect of wanting to help. When I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I spent a lot of time in the healthcare industry as a patient, and there was a few nurses who were just amazing, and they set the tone of empowering me to take control of my own health. And so they would kick my parents out of the room and ask me questions and give me solid advice on, you're going to be a teenager, here's how you do it safe living with type 1 diabetes. And I'm like, oh cool, so you're giving me the tools to make my own decision. So this was always it was always infused into who I am. And I was like, how do I convey this on to the world? And it's like, well, I don't want to go to medical school because I don't feel like going to school that long. What else can I do? And nursing school became that next step.
That's solid. And I'm sorry to hear about that with the type 1 diabetes. I'm glad that you're able to push through it, manage it, and get through it. And when it actually comes to your nursing, we talked about before this how, like, about 10 years in, you said something that you didn't like recognize yourself. So, like, what happened in that period of time?
Yeah, and real quick on the type 1 diabetes, I appreciate that. It's been the greatest teaching tool for me in my whole life. It's been my curriculum to who I need to become. So it's amazing of the lessons that I've learned from that. And so yeah, I became this emergency department nurse and was freaking loving life, full steam ahead. Like, let's do it. I was that person that was like, we're all in. I'm going to learn all the things. Well, what happens after you learn all of the things and you do all of the tasks and you max out on where you are? Well, that's where I found myself. So, and it was roughly 10 years in, and I was getting ready to go to work. I worked night shift, and I remember vividly walking past the mirror and thinking, who are you? Like, I don't recognize you. You're and I'm out of shape in every way possible, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so that's where I found myself. And I was in the middle of burnout, and I had no idea that that's exactly what it was. But it was interesting because as I'm about to leave, my wife catches me and she's like, "Hey, when you go to work tonight, look for something good because it's there. You just have to find it." And I'm like, whatever, thank you, no thanks. And I get to work, and I'm about to walk into my patient's room, and I hear my beautiful wife's voice in my head, "Look for something good." And I'm like, fine, fine, okay, I'll give in. Dude, I opened the door to this beautiful 4-year-old who had Down syndrome, and she was so sick. And I had the privilege of caring for her this entire night. And the only energy she had to give me, I didn't know what it was, but it was good. And I was like, wait a minute, what is this? And then her dad started interacting with me, and it was a similar energy, but from like this safe masculinity. And I was like, this is weird, but it's good. Right. And I'm like, wait a minute, is Jennifer, this is my wife, does Jennifer know something I don't know? And so, but like this set up the night, and all of a sudden it was like unconsciously I realized there's another side to the coin always. And later on I learned, Wayne Dyer would say, do you live in a hostile world or a loving world? Same world. Where are you choosing to look? And that was the key moment of like, wait a minute, I work in a pediatric hospital. There is goodness everywhere. I just have to find it. And that's what I started doing. I started finding the goodness. And it's almost like the burnout was gone because my candle relit. And it's like, oh, I'm on a quest. I'm no longer out to serve me and how can I advance my skills. But now I was showing up to work saying, all right, who can I serve tonight? How can this work? And it's like, and where is this goodness?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. Life is a whole lot different when you approach it positively and have some way of looking at it in a positive way. So that's great that you're able to pull that, like, go to that realization, especially in nursing, because a lot of stuff could be very negative. But I'm glad that you're making it positive. And so, when did you actually realize that you were unintentionally coaching people around you?
This is a fascinating turn of events because like all of this starts working together, and I tell people all the time, if you were to ask me to put out a timeline on all of these shifts and changes, I couldn't tell you what came first because it felt like it all came at the same time, but it was very linear at the same time. But so what happened was through this, I realized that working in emergency medicine, I was detaching from emotional situations. So, especially in pediatric, like we see so much that a human being shouldn't see and witness, and we tend to hide this. So, I got to the point where I realized I was not experiencing emotions, and this became my first intentional internal self work because I said I want to feel and be careful when you say to God, universe, whatever, what you want, because you will have every opportunity in the world to experience this. And at that time, I was angry. And what I realized later was I was experiencing sadness and it was exhibiting in anger. So I began to learn what emotions are, and emotions are our energy in motion, our emotion, and how we feel drives the direction in which the way we go. And this became so fascinating to me because, like when I started looking for things good, my emotion shifted and I started traversing down a different path. Well, this started because someone, my wife, flipped my perspective. And she gave me like this little spark of, hey, what about this? What about this? Look this way. And it's almost like, okay, cool. Well, I started doing this. And it was after the emotional awareness and understanding. And I'm like, all right, cool. I can start to read when people are emotionally going in a direction they don't want to go. So I started flipping perspectives every chance I could, very kindly, or as kindly as I could. And that the kindness came later. At first, it's like, you need to do this, you need to do that. But we softened it. And then people started coming to me in hopes that I would shift their perspective. And that's the moment that I realized, wait a minute, this I'm tapping into my potential and my purpose. Like the burnout was living in a misalignment with my purpose. And now as I'm realigning, everything's coming back into play. And that's when it started. And I just started flipping perspectives. And I was doing nursing, but my coworkers was flipping perspectives, and even patients and families when they would come like with this negative mindset of what's going on, it was how can I bring the light in on this and showcase, the blessing behind all of this. And so on one hand it was like a game, but on the other hand it's like I'm doing this internally, so I'm just going to share it. And that's where it started. I didn't know I was coaching, but ultimately that's what I was doing. And then that led into being offered opportunities. So that first 10 plus years, I was chasing this hierarchical ladder and I was being told no. Well, afterwards, I'm like, well, forget the ladder. I'm just going to be. And all of a sudden, I started climbing this hierarchical ladder in a totally different way. And I was introduced to innovation and simulation in healthcare, which gave me language to my 5-year-old self. And so it just kind of expanded the experience and gave me a bigger platform.
Yeah, that's super solid, and I'm glad that you're in the coaching realm today. And when it goes more into the depth of coaching, what actually drew you to the coaching certification and building a business around it?
Yeah. So, um, towards the end of my hospital tenure career, however you want to look at it, um, I was working in healthcare simulation, and so my wife went to this local conference, and she came home, and she's like, she handed me a business card, and she's like, "You got to call this person," and her name's Nancy Scott, and I was like, "Okay, cool." So I called her, and Nancy's energy was just it was intoxicating. I was like, okay, this is cool. And so she's a leadership and development director at University of Tennessee. And I'm like, so I hear you need coaches. And she's like, yeah. And she introduced me to ICF. Before that, I had no idea that there was an actual coaching credentialing through International Coaching Federation. And I said, okay, well, what will it take for me to be one of the coaches within your program? And so that led to the ICF credentialing. And so I took a class through CCTA and got, God, man, it was introduced to like everything that I had learned. It took this experience and it said, all right, here's the actual curriculum for it. Like here's how you apply it in real life. And ultimately at its core, it's how do we empower the person in front of us to understand, remember, and tap into their innate ability to do what they already know they need to do. We're just giving them permission and allowing it's ultimately like I'm going to guide you to your key and I'm going to show you how to unlock it and then you're going to unlock it. And so that's where that came from. And then started doing leadership coaching within the MBA program and was like, bro, like life coaching. That's the person that I was and I became. I did it alone, seeking out my own resources. What if I could allow someone to hack this and to decrease the time that it takes them to transform by introducing the tools that I found along the way? And that's how the coaching was like, all right, cool, I can do this. And just flowed right into it.
Yeah, that's quite the story, and I'm glad that, I mean, that's nice to have a lot of tools that actually helped you so you can showcase to them, to your clients, the best tools. And when it comes to your clientele, who would you say is your ideal client nowadays?
This is a great question. So because first of all, the client, they have to want to change. So they have to be willing to put in the work. I'm not going to do the work for you. Um, and you know, it's like any coach in sports. The coach will give you things to do, but if you as the player, as the team member, don't put it in action, you're not going to change. You know, like Michael Jordan was the first one in the workout room every morning and was there earlier if they lost. Well, that's he had this internal drive to want to do better. So that has to be there. But other than that, they just have to feel like there's something more for them, right? Like that misalignment of purpose, but you have no idea what it is. Because at that place is the world of possibility that is right in front of you. And it's like, all right, this is super cool because walking someone into this is like the aha moment. And it's like the gratitude experiment for me from helping people, which is what got me into nursing anyway. And it's ultimately like being a guide. So I would say, you know, someone who feels lost and they're like, I know I'm meant for more. I don't know what it is.
Okay, that makes sense. And can you actually tell us the story of a client of yours who came to like, improve themselves and left with a better slash different life?
Yes. I get this question a lot and I smiled because it's the same story that comes to mind and it's like I'm reliving it. And so, in order for me to share this, we have to go back to the story of me walking into the hospital after hearing look for something good. And the dad that I met, well, that's actually the client that I'm exampling right now. This was a moment of, you know, 15 years ago or so, 10 years ago, he gave me permission to transform, and he spoke love and life into me, and thus allowed me to get to where I am at the point when he needed a coach. And so he hired me, and he came to me and he's like, man, I'm like 26, 27 in the company. Like, I want to elevate myself on the leaderboard within the company. And I'm like, cool, let's go. Afterwards, we did a check-in. I'm like, all right, man, tell me about it. How are you? He was like, dude, my marriage is better than it's ever been. My relationship with my kids are like on point, and I feel like me. And then, oh yeah, by the way, I'm number 2 on the leaderboard in the company. And the fact that he came to me with the goal of raising himself within his business. And then when I asked him about where are we now, it was the last thing that he pointed out, but he nailed his goal. Like he crushed it. But like that spoke volumes to me, because it made me realize that life coaching or transformational coaching, whatever label we want to put on this, it's the same process. And if we change one thing in our life, we change everything. Jim Quick says the way we do one thing is the way we do all things. So if we change one thing, all of our things change. And it's funny because the side effects are what drive us to want to coach or want to change in the first place, because we're seeing these outputs. But that was fascinating. And that's like, for now, that's my ultimate example of transformation within someone.
Yeah, that's quite the story, and I'm glad you're able to make that impact on them. And yeah, definitely agree with you that if you do one thing, it definitely affects everything else in your life, and that's awesome that you're able to make that positive impact, not just in his work life, but his
Yes.
everyday life, including his relationships. And can you actually tell us about the book you're writing and the methodology you're developing behind it?
Yes. And as of this week, I'm excited to say the book's out. So the book is released. So yeah, the book title is SimRx, Transforming Healthcare Leadership and Culture by Design. So there's a lot to unpack here, so I'll keep it brief. So it's for visionaries who believe that education can heal. And I bring in education as a modality. It's it's kind of like the underlying aspect that everyone can relate to, but ultimately it's bringing human connection to it's using human connection to heal. So for once that, like, the future is something we want to predict, um, we can create it, we can prototype it, we can build it, and it's a human-centered framework that uses this education as a catalyst, so to transform systems. In a nutshell, we go from this legacy classroom style education, which is where we're sitting right now in healthcare, to this push for VR, AR, XR, MR, all of these different realities that create such immersive fidelity in our education. But there's a gap. There's a huge gap, because how do we get people to move from classroom, PowerPoint, didactic style education to full self automation of education? Self-led, I'm completely in control. So there's a huge gap there. So ultimately, SimRx bridges that gap along with putting the human back into the equation. So healthcare is a human service industry, and right now it is primarily focusing on check marks. It's focusing on policies and making sure that it's meeting all of its, checks. SimRx brings in the idea that, what if we put the human back into the equation? And what if we gave the power back to the person required to receive this education? So me as a nurse, I'm required to do every quarter competencies. What if I was put in charge of building these education tools that I'm then required to digest and act upon? And so ultimately, what I'm asking is, what if you were to give me the bicycle when you're teaching me how to ride a bicycle? Instead of, this is how you ride a bicycle, take a test on it, and you're competent. And so, therefore, afterwards, if we were to do this and then you hand me a bicycle, I can't ride the bicycle, even though I know how. I don't have a knowing how. So, how do we redesign how we show up, not only in healthcare, but in high stakes environments where people matter? And there's from patient education to frontline staff education and simulation, from leadership design and development to onboarding, like, and everything in between. So ultimately, it's from the bedside to the boardroom and everything in between. And it's a framework, a blueprint to say, here's how we shift, and what happens if we bring the person back into the mix.
Yeah, that's some powerful insight, and that's definitely a great read. Where can actually those people find the book?
Yes, the book is on Amazon. So it's self-published. It's on Amazon, and so just type in SimRx and under books, and it should be right there.
That's great.
And yeah,
And where can those actually interested in your coaching find and reach out to you by?
yeah, and actually, all you can find everything on my website. So my website is lifebydesign.me. Go there under offerings. It'll split into, so Align by Design is my coaching, and then Culture by Design is everything that I do within the innovation side of strategic planning, innovation training, things like that. And that's where the book is found as well. So that's kind of the two platforms within what I offer.
That's solid. Make sure to go check out his website, get his book. It was great having you on this episode of Zero to Empire, Eric. And thank you for your time. And thank you for everyone else for listening and watching in. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much, man.